Exposed, the sinister secrets of a cursed cemetery that haunts a town for 50 years, Lisa Johnson could feel the chill creeping in from the yawning darkness of Hollow Grove. The winds whispered threats, rustling leaves in a menacing dance, reminding her of the almost palpable dread lurking beneath their quaint town-esque surface. Halloween was near, but all the masks and costumes could not conceal the true terror that slumbered in the shadows. As rumors of the cursed cemetery on the town's outskirts spread, each tale seemed to drag long-buried fears back into the light. A place that held secrets of lost souls and possibly her own husband. Rummaging through her family-esque cobweb-laden basement, Lisa's hands trembled as she unearthed the tarnished locket. Inside was a faded photograph of a young couple. A sickening sensation twisted her stomach, as if she were uncovering echoes of lives lost. Next to the locket lay a cracked toy, its paint peeling, and an old ledger with strange names and dates that screamed of unresolved tragedies. Each item felt eerily alive, vibrating with their stories, and the sensation of being watched made her heart race. Something dark had awakened. Her children's laughter, once vibrant and soothing, faded to whispers of fear. Timmy's night terrors escalated, forcing Lisa to confront an unsettling truth. Shadowy figures haunted his dreams, and he began sketching them with trembling hands. They weren't just figments. They were messengers of doom, visions born from some nightmarish collective consciousness that seeped into their home. "Mommy, they're coming for us," Timmy would say, stammering. The words shot through her like ice. It was then she decided to seek help, but the sheriff was too absorbed in the annual festivities to listen. Townsfolk exchanged wary glances, shifting as she passed. They avoided her calls, as if they knew more than their lips would reveal. Hollow Grove had buried its demons too deep, and she was but a nuisance, one who dared to pry open the cursed past. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But the shadows didn't listen to warnings. One fateful night, Lisa awoke to the sound of scratching at her basement door, a skittering noise that yanked her from sleep. She brought the fingers of her trembling hand to her mouth, covering her gasp. Whispers echoed through the walls, taunting her sanity. "Help me! Help me!" A voice that didn't belong to any of her children. With each heartbeat, time stilled, and she stepped into the gloom of the basement. The air felt thick and electric. Something was waiting. And when she reached the door, her blood ran cold. A cryptic drawing lay crumpled on the floor, lines swirling like the inevitable grip of despair. Her children's names were scrawled there, with arrows pointing towards the cemetery. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. They had vanished, swallowed whole by the shadows. She was alone, surrounded by hidden truths and chilling tales woven from despair. The townsfolk had known all along. Hollow Grove wasn't just cursed, it thrived on darkness, and she had stumbled right into its trap. As she grasped the door handle, the darkness behind her closed in tighter, leaving her with one final question: what awaited her family beyond the grave markers that lined the cursed cemetery? Lisa's heart hammered in her chest, each beat a thunderous echo in the oppressive silence. She gripped the crumpled drawing, her knuckles turning white, and fought to suppress the rising tide of panic. The basement around her felt alive, the air thick with an ancient sorrow that clung to her skin like cold sweat. She forced herself to think, to act. Her children were out there, or rather somewhere. Gathering her courage, Lisa tore her gaze from the drawing and shoved open the basement door. The wooden frame creaked in protest, a mournful sound that punctuated her dread. She stepped into the darkened hallway, the atmosphere heavy and suffocating, as if the walls themselves conspired to hold her back. Every instinct screamed for her to turn back, to lock herself away from the creeping terror lurking just beyond the threshold of her reality. "Timmy! Emily!" she called out, her voice a desperate whisper swallowed by the shadows. The house remained silent, save for the faint rustle of leaves skimming across the window, creating a rhythm that matched her escalating heartbeat. She could see the moonlight flickering through the cracks in the curtains, almost taunting her. It felt as if it was saying she was too late, too weak to fight the darkness that had entrapped her family. The air shifted. A cold draft swept through the hallway, brushing Lisa's face with icy fingers, sending shivers down her spine. It carried with it a soft, disembodied laughter. She flinched, heart racing, instinctively moving towards the front door. Perhaps if she could just escape. But her feet felt heavy, as if the very ground was urging her to stay. What if the cemetery wasn't just a haunt for the lost? What if it harbored something even more sinister, something that wanted her too? The thought clenched around her throat, churning her stomach. A sudden crash broke the air of stillness. It came from the kitchen, loud and jarring. Lisa's breath quickened. She forced herself forward, each step heavier than the last. She pushed aside the kitchen door, anticipation clawing at her throat. Empty. Then she spotted it beneath the shattered remains of a ceramic cookie jar. The fleeting shadow. It darted beneath the table, a form sliding quickly, almost seamlessly into the darkness. She strained to see, her eyes adjusting to the dim light, fear gripping her as she bent closer. What was it? Kids? She called out again, voice trembling. Silence reigned, and just as she started to turn back, her pulse quickened at the sight of a tiny handprint smeared across the floor, a mix of dirt and what looked disturbingly like blood. Panic surged. "Mommy!" A faint voice floated on the air, just audible enough to freeze Lisa in place. It was Timmy, calling for her. From where? The cemetery? Lisa couldn't stand still. I have to save them. I have to go now. She leaped toward the door, breath hitching in her throat as an unseen force slammed it shut right in front of her. Let me out! She screamed, pounding her fists against the door, praying it would budge. But it remained firmly locked. The laughter she had heard before now surrounded her, taunting and cruel. The shadows thickened, twisting in the corners of her vision, beckoning her to surrender. But she was fighting, mind racing, desperate. If she didn't reach the cemetery soon, they might be lost forever. You can't keep me here! She yelled into the abyss, fury igniting her spirit. A flicker of courage surged within her as she heard her son's voice again, clearer now, rising above the weight of despair. Mommy! We're here! Adrenaline flooded her veins, igniting the fight within her. She turned and ran towards the door, a primal scream escaping her lips. With a final push, the door flew open. Now it was just a matter of making it to the cemetery in time. As she dashed into the night, the shadows slithered around her, eager to ensnare her in their web of despair. Yet she ran, driven by love toward the one place that has haunted them all. But then, as she reached the edge of the town, there it was, looming. The cemetery's gates creaked open, an invitation, and a warning wrapped in darkness. Would she find her children, or would she become another whisper carried away by the wind? What awaited her inside the cursed cemetery, she could barely fathom. But she stepped forward, drawn by the desperate cries of her children, and into a night filled with terrors she was yet to confront. Lisa stumbled through the cemetery gates, her breath coming in ragged gasps as the moon hung high above, casting a cold, silvery glow across the overgrown headstones. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth, and the oppressive silence seemed to swallow her whole. Shadows crept along the ground, wrapping around her ankles like icy fingers, urging her deeper into the graveyard. Timmy! Emily! She called again, her voice trembling, but all she received in return was the unsettling echo of her own desperation. Panic clawed at the edges of her mind, but she pressed on, driven by an unyielding hope that her children were still alive somewhere within this eerie maze of death. As she weaved between the graves, the whispers began soft at first, barely audible but growing louder, wrapping around her like a shroud. Mommy! A chorus of voices seemed to call, their tones mingling with the rustling leaves above her. Her skin prickled. Was she losing her mind, or was something reaching out from beyond? Suddenly, a flicker caught her eye near a weathered tombstone. There was movement. She rushed over, heart leaping into her throat. But when she reached the stone, she found only an empty space. The laughter returned, taunting and sinister, as if it reveled in her dread. The weight in her chest sank deeper as her children's voices faded into distant whispers. "No, no, please," she muttered, trembling as the shadows thickened around her. Were they laughing at her misery? Lisa clenched her fists, agony swelling within her. She refused to succumb to despair. They were here. She could feel it. She pressed onward, her feet crunching on brittle leaves as she approached a hulking mausoleum at the center of the graveyard. A foreboding chill wrapped around her like a dark cloak. "This has to be it," she whispered to herself, fighting to remain composed. She hesitated for just a moment, then gripped the cold handle of the mausoleum door. It groaned open on rusty hinges, revealing a yawning darkness within. A rush of stale air hit her face, filled with the scent of decay and old memories. Clenching her teeth, she stepped inside. The air was colder here, and the shadows loomed larger, engulfing her in their depths. "Timmy! Emily!" she yelled into the gloom, every syllable resonating like a death knell. The silence that followed clenched her heart, tightening like a vice. Suddenly, she could hear something low and rhythmic, a heartbeat? No, a thumping, an echo from deeper within. She crept forward, each step sinking her deeper into dread. What if she found them? What if she didn't? In the far corner, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Lisa's heart raced as she approached, the light from outside barely reaching this hidden chamber. The thumping intensified, then stopped dead. She squinted into the darkness, searching for the source. "Kids?" she called once more, trembling. A figure emerged, shadowy and indistinct. Was it one of them? As it stepped into the light, Lisa's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't Timmy or Emily. Instead, a hollow face stared back at her, eyes sunken deep with an insatiable hunger. "She's here," it croaked, voice scratchy and broken. "You shouldn't have come." Panic surged inside her. What was this thing? Instinct screamed at her to run, but she was anchored to the spot, fear rooting her in place. Behind the creature, she spotted a glimmer of something. Was it a small figure crouched in the shadows? A child's form? "Mommy," the voice echoed again, but this time it was clearer, stronger, mingled with a ragged wailing. Lisa's resolve ignited. She couldn't leave them behind. With a primal scream, she lunged toward the figure lingering in darkness, desperation fueling her strength. But as she moved, the ground beneath her began to shift. The walls of the mausoleum seemed to pulse, closing in around her. A cruel, wicked grin revealed through the cracks in the earth. "Help us!" echoed the voices, now a haunting chorus. The laughter intensified, a cacophony of madness as the shadows closed in, ready to claim another soul. Lisa was on the brink of being consumed, yet something stirred in her. There was a way out. If she could just break through the darkness, but in that tumultuous moment, would she find her children or descend into the bowels of the cemetery's dread? A silent scream tore through her lips as she launched herself forward. Would courage be enough, or was she racing headlong into her doom? The world around Lisa shattered into chaos. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and the walls writhed as though alive. She plunged forward, the chill of despair clawing at her heels. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out everything but the cries for help. The vague outline of a child shimmered ahead, obscured by the dark cloud of horror that enveloped her. "Timmy! Emily!" The words burst forth, louder this time, fueled by raw desperation. She fought against the force tightening around her throat, pulling her back as if the mausoleum itself sought to keep her from escaping. But she couldn't rest, not now. They were here, somewhere in this cryptic nightmare, waiting for her. Fingers grazing the damp stone walls, she could feel the pulsating energy more clearly now. It thrummed with a malevolence that threatened to suffocate her. Taking a deep breath, she pressed deeper into the shadows, her vision narrowing to the flickering light that led her way. She could almost hear them, soft, pleading voices rising above the maddening laughter that echoed like a derisive symphony. The child's figure surged closer but twisted away just as she reached for it. "Mommy!" it called, but the voice was warped, a sinister mimicry playing tricks on her sanity. No! She stumbled, a surge of anger slicing through her fear. I'm coming! Lisa's eyes swam as she fought against an unseen force dragging her back, her mind screaming in protest. Suddenly, a cold hand, small yet powerful, grasped her wrist. The touch was fleeting, electric, a momentary connection. A tight sob caught in her throat as she spun around, but found only emptiness engulfing her. The hand was gone, but she felt it had been real. Down! A voice hissed beside her, sharp and urgent. Before she could register the command, a dark shadow lunged from the corners of the mausoleum. It was the creature, its hollow eyes glinting like stones, a twisted grin stretched across its face. Lisa ducked instinctively, but the cold air shifted violently past her, and she knew it was targeting her again. Leave! It screeched. They belong to us now. An inconceivable rage thrummed in her veins. You want to take them? She screamed, her voice ringing with defiance. Bolting toward the wall, she searched for any sign, any passage leading to her children. The thumping reverberated again, deep and foreboding like the beat of a war drum. The whispers transformed, rising into a frantic chorus. Help us! Help us! They echoed through the depths, mingling with the creature's growls, converging into a swirling storm of noise. The mausoleum felt smaller, as if it were collapsing in on itself, a death trap woven from sorrow and malice. Without warning, the ground beneath her trembled violently. Lisa staggered, feeling the earth shift and buckle, as if it were alive and enraged. The walls bent inward, and with it came a deafening crack, splitting the air in two. There was nowhere left to argue in the midst of the chaos. The light flickered one last time. Mommy! The cry rang out again, full of hope but tinged with dread. Fueled by instinct, she launched herself towards the sound, crashing through the oppressive darkness. And then there was nothing. The shadows swallowed her whole, leaving her in a void of silence. Lisa's heart slammed against her ribcage as she tumbled into the abyss, deeper and deeper, the whispers fading into a haunting lull. In that never-ending fall, she could feel her children reaching out, their warmth slipping through her fingers like sand. But then, just as despair threatened to consume her, a warm, familiar hand gripped hers tightly, pulling her toward an elusive light. As they began to surface, the ground below trembled again, and the chilling laughter returned, louder and closer. What awaited them in this other realm? Lisa's heart raced. Would she escape with her children, or would they both be lost to the curse that haunted the cemetery? As they ascended, she could feel it, the crushing force of the darkness ready to reclaim them all. And then, just as they drew near the light, Lisa's vision blurred. What awaited her on the other side? In that fleeting second, all hope and horror coalesced into an agonizing question. Had she merely saved her children, or had she doomed them all? The light momentarily enveloped Lisa, a shimmering halo amid the shadows. Heart pounding, she squinted against the brightness that felt both familiar and foreign. Fearful whispers melted into the background, overtaken by the echo of her kids calling for her. Warmth swept over her, yet beneath that warmth lay a chill that gripped her heart. Suddenly, the light flickered. She felt the hand slip away. No! No, no, no! The cold terror clawed at her, and before she could comprehend it, darkness surged around her once more, swallowing the glow. She crashed back into nothingness, plummeting again through the suffocating void. Mommy! This time, the voices sounded weaker, distant, layered in anguish. They were begging, no longer calling. Frantic panic sparked in her chest as she strained against the emptiness around her, twisting and turning in desperate search. You have to help them. You have to save them. A whisper echoed, sharp and haunting. The voice felt alive within her, fueling her desperation. She clawed her way through the dark, her fingers scraping against invisible barriers, searching for a way back to her children. The pressure around her grew heavier, colder. Shadows coiled dangerously around her, snaking in closer. What are you? She gasped, almost too afraid to hear the answer. Part of the past, part of the darkness, it growled. They are ours never! She shot back, her voice fierce. I will not let them go. I will find them. Then a crack split the suffocating silence, a fracture in the dark. A distant shimmer flashed, and she darted toward it, only to be met by a swirling fog creeping in. "Don't listen," it hissed. "It only leads to despair." Something twisted in her gut, as she fought against the impulse to flee it. She pressed on, slinging herself toward the light. Her breath turned ragged, desperation invading her sanity. Voices coiled together in a mournful harmony. "Help us, we're scared," the murmur of the children pulled her through the dark waves, closer to the swirling glow. She forced her feet to move, even as the tendrils of shadows latched onto her, dragging her back. "Fight!" She screamed into the abyss. Suddenly she was ripped from the void. The world snapped back, and she crashed onto cold ground, the weight of shadows still clinging to her. Blinking against the sudden brightness, she registered the stark reality. The mausoleum stood before her, but it felt different, warped. The air buzzed with malevolent energy, resonating with the chaos that had just unfolded. "Mommy?" She looked up. The familiar, heart-wrenching sound sent a shockwave of recognition shooting through her. "Timmy! Emily!" Lisa scrambled up, her eyes desperately searching the dim corners of the mausoleum. But all that answered were the echoes of her calls, bouncing off the stone walls. "Mommy! Help!" The cries rang louder, and her heart sank as they drifted away, deeper into the darkness that loomed behind her. What had she unleashed? Panic clawed up her throat. She couldn't lose them again. Dread pooled in her stomach as she realized the laughter had returned, this time twisted with jeering malice. The shadows morphed into solid shapes, pulsing with energy, glaring down at her. The creature loomed in the periphery, its eyes glowing like tombstones in the night. "No!" She took a step back. "I won't let you take them." But its laughter rang in her ears, a sinister confirmation. "You can't fight what you don't understand," it hissed, dark tendrils creeping closer, curling like smoke. Lisa felt the pull of the darkness, the crushing weight of what lay ahead pressing against her mind. She was teetering on the precipice of despair, her heart racing with burgeoning defeat. Just then, Timmy's voice cut through the madness again. "Mommy, please! We're trapped." The shadows closed in, whispering horrors that filled her mind with dread. "It's your choice, save them or save yourself." With resolve hardening her spirit, she lunged toward the shadows, bracing herself for the battle ahead. "I choose them." As she charged into the sinister realm, the darkness churned and twisted, unveiling a nightmarish vision yet to come. What awaited her in the black tide rising before her? Would she uncover the truth or slip deeper into the consuming shadows? The shadows writhed, curling around her like frigid claws. Lisa could feel them pulse, alive and sentient, fueled by her dread. Each breath tasted like iron as she pressed forward, her heart pounding to the rhythm of whispers that spiraled around her. Time felt distorted, as if reality was merely a suggestion in this monstrous void. "Mommy! Help us!" Timmy's voice echoed again, a pale specter of hope cutting through the darkness. The urgency behind his plea ignited a fire within her. If she could just reach him, touch him, pull him back from wherever the shadows had taken him. "Where are you?" she cried, each word a lifeline thrown into a churning sea. Haze thickened around her, dimming the light. Beyond the grave, a voice mocked, chilling her to the bone. Moments stretched as shadows whispered secrets, tales of those lost. Faces flickered in her memory, people who had walked these grounds before, foretelling her eventual doom. "Leave them alone!" she shouted, defiance surging through her. Her muscles coiled tight, preparing for an unyielding battle against the darkness that tightened around her. Such bravery, so futile. The creature emerged, towering and grotesque, its form shifting as if it were made of the very shadows it commanded. Eyes like glowing coals bore into her, dissecting her resolve like prey. "You will never escape. They are bound to me now. Not if I have anything to say about it." Lisa's voice trembled, but she wouldn't falter. She plunged into the mass of shadows, dread wrapping tightly around her limbs like barbed wire. In a sudden rush, she was engulfed in a cacophony of wails and sobs, the anguished sounds of those lost within this malevolent realm. Each cry felt like barbed wire against her skin. Pain etched itself into her heart. "I will find you!" she shouted into the void, her voice a fragile shield against despair. The creature howled, its voice blending with the sorrowful symphony. "You are too late! They are part of this now, join them!" Light danced at the edges of her vision, taunting her. If she could just reach that glow, it might be salvation or an exit from this nightmare. Struggling against the encroaching shadows, Lisa shouted her determination into the night. "No! I refuse to let the darkness win." Fleeting memories of Timmy and Emily surged back, their laughter, their tiny arms wrapped around her. They needed her. With a fierce scream, she shoved the darkness aside, pushing forward, clawing her way through the pain. The light flared, illuminating a path ahead, a pulsing beacon in the chaos. But then, a guttural laugh split the air. "They will never come back." The shadows twisted tighter around her, swallowing the light. "Mommy!" Timmy's voice quivered, broken and desperate, as if the shadows were siphoning their hope. "Help us! Please!" Lisa's resolve cracked like brittle glass. "I'm coming!" But the shadows swelled, lapping at her feet, straining to pull her back. Breath caught in her throat as she felt herself sinking deeper into their cold grip. Suddenly, the light flickered violently in her chest. A blinding surge erupted, shattering the terror for an instant. In that moment of clarity, she saw figures. Ethereal forms, ghosts trapped in a cycle of despair, reaching for her, pleading for release. "What are you?" she gasped, her heart racing with confusion and dread. "Part of the curse," a voice whispered, echoing through her mind, filled with profound sadness. "You must choose, save your children, or join us in eternal agony." As the shadows brimmed closer, Lisa could feel the weight of their collective sorrow wrapping tightly around her heart, drawing her into their mournful abyss. The choice now hung like a sword above her head, threatening to drop. What would she decide? Would she sacrifice herself for the chance to rescue her children, or plunge deeper into irrevocable doom? With her heart pounding, she faced the agonizing choice, realizing too late the dangers that laid within the dark. Lisa's mind raced, the insidious whispers digging deeper into her thoughts, slithering like snakes coiling around her heart. "Save them, or perish," they hissed, every syllable dripping with despair. Timmy's voice was fading, a haunting echo just beyond her reach. She could feel the warmth of her children slipping away, replaced by the cold touch of the shadows. "No," she gasped, the word barely escaping her lips. The weight of her agonizing choice pressed down on her like 1,000 stones. "Choose." The creature loomed larger, its shadowy form swirling around her. It basked in her turmoil, reveling in her fear. "Your love binds you, just as it binds them. But this bond comes at a cost, one you must bear." With trembling hands, she fought back against the darkness that clamored at her, each tug making her bones scream in protest. It was as if the very essence of her being was being siphoned, twisted into the shadow's grotesque tapestry. Yet she felt a flicker of resolve igniting in her chest. If she was to act, it had to be now. "Let them go!" Lisa cried out, the defiance roaring back like a wildfire threatened by the wind. She felt a surge of energy, a warmth brushing against the encroaching cold. A face appeared within the shadows. It was familiar, yet unrecognizable. Eyes wide with terror, flitting between desperation and acceptance, another lost soul, another failure. Lisa, the voice was weak, quavering. "You must, Timmy!" she shouted, reaching out toward the illumination echoing through the fog like a lighthouse amidst a storm. "Hold on, sweetheart! I'm coming!" As she pushed through the thick veil of dread, the creature shrieked, a sound that rattled her bones. "You cannot save them! They are entwined with me now! Join us, and the burden will lift!" Cold tendrils wrapped around her, attempting to pull her into a whirlpool of despair. As she struggled, the figures beyond the shadows reached out, their ghostly hands brushing hers. Among them, she recognized the empathic heart she lost, a friend who had once ventured into this cursed cemetery. "What happened to you?" she gasped, looking into the frightened eyes of the specter. "It's the darkness, it changes you. Fades you, it feeds on your deepest fears," they replied, their voice a hollow whisper. You must fight, Lisa. Break the cycle. Frantic adrenaline surged. She pushed back against the shifting silhouettes, conjuring memories of Timmy and Emily, their laughter ringing like a clear bell in her mind. They needed her. No! She screamed, lifting her arms wide. I will not lose them to you. With one fierce motion, she summoned every ounce of love she had for her children. The shadowy claws recoiled as if burned, shrieking in anguish. Light began to pulse from her heart, radiating warmth and hope, a brilliant flare that banished the shadows for the briefest moment. Yet, the creature, furious and desperate, lunged forward. Your love is your weakness. You will all fall into despair. Lisa faltered for a heartbeat, terror gripping her once more as the shadows charged, ravenous. Time distorted again, warping her perception as she fought against the onslaught. Then, from within the swirling mass, she caught sight of two tiny figures, pale and flickering. Mommy! Their voices blended together, a key unlocking her shattered resolve. Before she could respond, darkness swept over her anew, engulfing the light she momentarily summoned. She felt herself falling, spiraling deeper into a chasm of night. The shadows shifted, their laughter mocking her. You are lost, you are already part of us. The familiarity of their voices began to fade like a haunting melody. The choice loomed once more, heavier than before, and with it came an unthinkable revelation. As the abyss reached for her, whispering promises of dark tales and desperate endings, she realized all of this had been leading to something far worse. Not only was she fighting for her kids, the shadows were playing a greater game with stakes that went beyond her comprehension. What if she breathed, fear curdling into icy dread? What if it's not just us they want? In that moment of realization, the true horror sank in, wrapping around her heart like a vice. Before she could grasp the full weight of the looming truth, the draw of the shadows tugged her down. The darkness had only just begun to reveal its true form, and the nightmare was far from over. The world around Lisa fractured. Shadows swirled, warping her reality into something twisted, grotesque. Coldness seeped deep into her bones, a creeping frost that threatened to freeze her resolve. As the darkness clung to her, she felt her control slipping, the whispers returning with a vengeance. Give in, Lisa, they coaxed, a chorus of voices dripping with malice. Join us, it's easier. It's safer. She shook her head violently, her hair whipping against her face. No! The word burst from her lips like a gunshot. I will fight. But their laughter echoed all around her, insidious and mocking. The faces of the shadows flickered before her, morphing into her worst fears, her children, fractured and forsaken, reaching out in pain, their eyes wide with terror. Mommy, Timmy's voice was a fragile whisper, warping her heart further with every syllable. Help us, Timmy, hold on! She screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. She grappled for the light she had summoned so fiercely, trying to grasp onto that flickering hope. And what of Emily? Another whisper drifted, slinking into her ear. How far will you go to save them? Would you sacrifice yourself? Fear coursed through her like ice water. The shadows stretched toward her, and she felt their cold tendrils probing, searching for a weakness. No! She roared, channeling every bit of her love afire against the encroaching dark. The ground beneath her feet quaked, and the air crackled. I am their mother! Searing light erupted from her heart, engulfing her being. The tendrils flinched, shrieking in agony as the brilliance pushed them back. For an instant, the darkness receded like a tide, allowing her to glimpse her children, pale, shivering forms trapped behind a veil of shadows. Mommy! They cried again, desperate and hollow, their faces flickering like dying embers in the vast dark. Stay strong! Lisa shouted, her voice echoing against the walls of the shadowed abyss. But the shadows recoiled faster, coiling around their frail forms, suffocating them in whispers of despair. She felt her heart constrict, each pulse a reminder of her helplessness. Don't you see? The creature's voice, now smooth and enticing, slithered back into her thoughts. You will never escape. This is where you belong. This is your fate. No! Lisa gasped, fighting through the panic, through the overwhelming sense of doom. The memories of her children intertwined with the scream of the darkness, feeding on her fear, turning it into a weapon. Your pain will only feed us. The shadows surged back, menacing and powerful, but she refused to yield. In that moment, she understood the fight was not just for her children, but for every soul woven into this web of despair. Then I will break the cycle, she cried, channeling every ounce of courage, love, and fury. The light within her flared brightly, an incandescent shield against the dark. With a primal scream, she thrust her hands outward, pushing against the gathering darkness. The shadows recoiled, shrieking like wild animals, as her love surged through the air, vibrant and fierce. But the darkness's grip was relentless, tugging at her resolve. Join us, Lisa, see the truth their voices insinuated, wrapping around her like chains. As she stood her ground, each pulse of light illuminating the terrifying truth for just a moment, old memories flickered in her mind, faces she had lost, stories never told, townsfolk whispered about in fear. And then an image of an adult figure, cloaked in shadow, standing at the cemetery's edge. With a jolt, she realized, it wasn't just her children they sought. It was something bigger. Something older. What do you want from us? She called, defiance sparking in her voice. The shadows shuddered, the creature hesitating for a sliver of a second. You'll see soon enough, it hissed. And then, with a blinding flash, the night shattered. Lisa felt herself yanked back, flung through space, spinning toward an unknown fate, the darkness roaring behind her, a promise of horror echoing in her ears. The fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. Where would this lead her? And what consequences awaited her when everything was laid bare? Lisa landed hard, the impact stealing the breath from her lungs. She gasped, heart racing, eyes wide open in the pitch blackness. Around her, a thick, oppressive fog pressed in, cold and damp. She blinked, trying to clear her vision, but the crushing darkness held her tightly, laughing silently at her attempts to fight it. Where am I? The thought crashed through her mind, heavy and chaotic. Was this some twisted limbo? A world sandwiching reality between layers of nightmares? A low rumble vibrated through the ground beneath her. She could almost hear the whispers rising in intensity, a frenzy. You cannot escape the truth, Lisa, they crooned, a sickly sweet lullaby. Your children are lost just like you. Shut up. I want to listen, she screamed, launching herself forward, arms flailing through the thick air. Each step felt like trudging through molasses, the darkness clawing at her heels, unwilling to let her go. Then, just as suddenly, the fog began to dissipate. She stumbled into an open clearing, a cemetery with gravestones jutting out of the earth like jagged teeth. The moon hung low and full, illuminating the chaos around her. Shadows drifted like wraiths over the graves, swirling with malevolence, their whispers beckoning her deeper. What do you want? She shouted, though fear wrapped around her throat, squeezing tightly. No answer came, but the night air thickened, electric and crackling with something sinister. She felt it, a presence lurking just beyond her sight. A shiver worked its way down her spine as her instincts screamed to run, but something pinned her feet to the ground. Against the shadows, she caught sight of familiar headstones. Names etched into stones sent icy daggers through her heart. Timmy, Emily, had they come here? Were they lost among the graves, trapped in this hellish realm of despair? Mommy! A voice broke through her fog of doubt, timid yet desperate. Timmy! She cried, her heart leaping. She spun around, searching frantically, but there was only darkness. Where are you? Help us, the voice echoed, winding around her like a dark vine. The whisper twisted her heart, fear clawing at her insides. I'm here. I'm coming. She raced toward the voice. Each eager step led her deeper into the graveyard. Shadows lunged at her, stealing the breath from her lungs. Panic surged like an electric current. Suddenly, an overwhelming gust of wind tossed her backward. Dizziness swirled around her, the ground pulling away. She landed hard again, scraping her palms against the rough earth. From the depths of the shadows, a figure emerged, cloaked and indistinct. Its presence radiated malevolence, an ancient power. She felt it gnawing at her sanity, whispering her name, drawing her closer. Lisa, join us for your children, it hissed, its voice blending with the chorus of the shadows around her. No! I won't give in! Her fists clenched as the figure inched nearer, revealing a glimpse of its face, a grotesque mask of elongated features and hollow eyes. Terror washed over her, choking her resolve. Face your truth, Lisa, the creature taunted. They are gone, lost forever, no! She screamed, fighting against the tide of despair washing over her. I won't let you take them. But doubt crept in, whispering insidiously. What if she was too late? What if they really were lost? The air grew thick and electric. She felt the shadows pressing in, suffocating, strangling the space around her. Just as the darkness seemed to consume her whole, the figure lunged forward, reaching for her with gnarled hands. Lisa's heart pounded frantically in her chest. With a last burst of strength, she yelled, "Get away from me!" A blinding flash erupted from her, sending the creature stumbling back, its form writhing in agony. But the darkness only expanded, threatening to swallow her entirely as her hope flickered like a dying flame. In that moment, another voice echoed through the darkness, an elderly tone. Lisa, remember why you are here. Who was that? It was a voice she felt in her bones, pulling at something long suppressed. And then, the weight of the shadows shifted, revealing a foreboding path lit only by moonlight, stretching deep into the cemetery. Could the answer lie ahead? Or was it another trap, another step deeper into the abyss? With a heart full of dread, she took a step forward into the unknown. Lisa felt the air shift, a tangible tension hanging heavier than the darkness itself. Was this a moment of reckoning? The whispers curled around her mind, a cacophony of hopelessness laced with desperate pleas. Yet, beneath it all, another voice was stirring, waking from the depths of her memory. Timmy! Emily! She shouted, urgency driving her forward on the twisted path, her heart pounding. Each step was a battle against the weight of despair that draped over her like a shroud. Shadows danced, their forms gnashing at her heels, but she was relentless. You have to choose, Lisa echoed the spectral voice, threading through her thoughts. Follow the light or remain lost. There it was, a flicker, glistening like a distant star, breaking through the ebony miasma. Hope surged. Better to chase the light than succumb to darkness. With a deep breath, she pushed herself into a sprint toward the glow. As she raced further into the cemetery, the murmurings intensified, shifting from angry storms to haunting lamentations. Mommy! Help us! Echoed a chorus of anguished voices, sending shards of ice through her veins. We're scared, hold on. I'm coming! She screamed, channeling her fear into an engine of fierce determination, pushing through the agony in her chest. But as she ran, shadows clawed with a chilling grasp, trying to drag her backward. The air crackled with supernatural energy, twisting her surroundings into a monstrous kaleidoscope of terror. You can't escape us, Lisa! The creature's voice howled, clawing at her mind. Not today! She cried, breaking through yet another veil of dark fog. She clutched her heart tightly, not for herself but for her children who needed her, who were somewhere just beyond her reach. At last, she burst into a clearing. The moon shined bright overhead, illuminating a circle of gravestones. In the center stood the mausoleum, its door ajar, beckoning her inside like a siren-esque call. And with it came the faint sounds of sobbing, her children's cries. Timmy! Emily! She yelled once more as dread flooded her senses. She dashed inside without hesitation, propelled by love that coursed through her veins. The interior was just as dark, just as menacing, but she could hear their voices clear now, filling her with renewed strength. Mommy! We don't know where we are! Their little voices echoed back. Shush, I'm here! I'm coming! She pressed deeper into the gloom, feeling the walls pulse around her like a living entity. The ground trembled, shadows swirling, their laughter rising into frantic madness. And there they were, pale and flickering against the stone wall, holding on to each other, fear etched in their eyes. Lisa's heart shattered at the sight. Mommy! They cried in unison, reaching out toward her. No! No! I'm here! She rushed forward, arms outstretched. But as she took a step, the darkness lunged, clawing at her, darting between her limbs in a feverish dance. Join us, Lisa! The creature's voice hissed, rising above her children's cries. You'll never leave this place forever bound to the curse. Get away from them! She shrieked, something inside her igniting with fury. I will free them! A blinding light erupted from her heart, a furious, incandescent wave that surged forward, sweeping aside the choking haze around her. The darkness screamed and recoiled, but not before tugging at Timmy and Emily. Mommy! Help! They shouted, voices mingling together in sweet desperation. In a flare of sheer will, Lisa darted toward her children. She could almost touch them now. As the light battered the encroaching shadows, she felt her hope lifting the weight of despair like a feather. Are you ready to join us? The shadows called, but fury replaced fear in Lisa's heart. Not while I breathe! She lunged toward her children, stretching her arms wide, as though embracing every ounce of love she bore. In that moment, she felt ethereal hands join hers beneath her children. The shadows screamed, twisting and writhing before her eyes like an uprooted storm. And in a surge of warmth, she pulled Timmy and Emily to her chest, blinding light erupting, banishing the blackness into oblivion. As the echoes of shadows faded, laughter returned, warm and radiant. Mommy! Her children's joyous voices pierced the air. Light enveloped them, immersing them in safety. When her eyes opened again, the mausoleum stood quiet, bathed in the cool glow of dawn breaking through the clouds. Broken gravestones remained, but the whispers had faded. The curse was broken. Timmy and Emily looked up, eyes bright with innocence returned. Are we safe now, Mommy? They asked, their tiny hands clutching her tightly. Always, she whispered, tucking them close. Together, they left the cemetery, walking away from the darkness that had haunted them. The morning air felt fresh, untainted by despair. Hollow Grove would heal, and she felt lighter now. As they stepped into the warm sunlight, Lisa knew she had won not just for them but for the many souls who had wandered lost, and she would keep their memory alive. Never again would shadows take hold, for the light of love would always guide her, through every darkness, even those thought never to end. As you've followed this intense journey of horror, let me say, you need to subscribe right now. Don't let those ominous shadows creep back into your life. Smash the like button now to keep this content alive. Flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about the ending. What did it mean to you? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Show your support.